I am not one thing. I am a full sentence, not a label. I am a paragraph of contradictions, a story with context, a life with footnotes that rarely gets read. And some days, some moments, the world read me like a mistake, as though it is confused by my existence. As if I walked out of the margins and into a space that was never meant for me. Not because I don't belong, but because their blueprint never included people like me. But when I come to think of this, I remember that I'm not here to make sense to systems that were never built to hold me. I'm not here to shrink myself so I can fit the outlines they have drawn. I am here instead to redraw. In this episode, it is for the in-betweens, the layered, the unboxed, the undefined, the mispronounced, the too visible, and the too invisible. The ones who live in intersections that society doesn't always have languages for, and sometimes doesn't want languages for. Because once you name it, you have to deal with it. It is for those who have been told to pick a struggle, for those who navigate multiple identities and carry the weight of being misunderstood in every room, for those who are seen but not recognized, for those who intersectionality is a daily experience, who wake up and wonder which part of you will be tolerated today and which parts will be too much. When I say I am Black and trans and queer, I am not naming identities in sequence. I am not reading from a list. I am speaking from a lived geography, a layered lived geography, a place that is not on any map in the world, but shows up in how I walk into rooms, how I am treated in hospitals, how I am heard or not heard in conversations. When I say these things, I'm describing a reality that doesn't get to rest, where the color of my skin already tells a story before I speak, where who I look like is questioned before it is respected, where whom I choose to love is politicized before it is understood. When I say these things, I'm telling you where I exist. In the waiting rooms where I have been misgendered, in the boardrooms where I have been tokenized, in the sidewalks where I have been followed, and in the gatherings where I have been told to tone it down. I exist in all the places I've been forced to explain myself, sometimes calmly, sometimes angrily, but always repeatedly. I have had to carve out my existence in systems that didn't see me, much less plan for me, and yet I exist, fully, constantly, in resistance. There are days when the racism is louder than the transphobia, when the color of my skin walks into a room before I do, commanding assumptions, microaggressions, and tension I didn't ask for. There are days when I feel eyes calculating who they think I am, based solely on the shade of my skin. Then there are days when the transphobia Then there are days when the transphobia screams over everything else. When I hear whispers in bathrooms, feel double takes on the streets, or sense the cautious pause in someone's voice when they try to avoid saying the wrong pronoun. Days when even silence feels like a scream, when just existing feels like performative art. And then there are the days when classism pierces through, when I'm made to feel like I need to dress better to be respected, or reminded subtly and not so subtly that I don't belong in certain spaces because of how I speak, what I can afford, or what my upbringing lacked. when poverty is read as laziness, when my voice isn't coded professional enough, when I have to work twice as hard just to be told I still need to do more. And some days it's just noise, all of it. Ableism, classism, transphobia, racism, queerphobia, layered over each other like an off-key orchestra. Not one louder than the other, just a tangled overlap chaos that is hard to name and harder to carry. On these days, the world feels like 1,000 pepper cuts, and I'm expected to smile through all of them like I'm not bleeding. What does intersectionality means to you? For me, it means complexity. Not the type of complex that needs solving, but the kinds that demands honoring. It's the simultaneous holding of pain and pride. It is being reminded that when I'm celebrated in one breath, I am erased in the next. It means I have learned to speak in layers, not because I want to, but because I've had to. I've had to translate myself, code switch myself, soften myself, and sometimes completely disappear myself just to be heard. It means holding joy in the same breath, like laughing at a meme that reminds me I still carry trauma I haven't named yet. It's grieving while attending a protest. It's celebrating love in a body that is constantly under scrutiny. It is dancing while the world burns because rest and resistance often look like the same thing. To advocate for myself in spaces that tokenize one part of me while erasing the rest is to constantly negotiate visibility. To be told I am brave for being out, but too aggressive for speaking truth. Is to be asked to join the panel, but to not record. It's to be asked to join the panel, but not to rock the boat. To be called on when my identity serves a purpose, but silenced when my reality becomes inconvenient. Intersectionality doesn't make me confusing. It makes me human, intricate, whole, and I refuse to flatten that for anyone. I once sat in a room where someone said, "We need to center Black voices," and everyone nodded with the kind of practice seriousness, the kind that looks good in photos. Then I spoke. It wasn't a soundbite, it was truth. But suddenly the air shifted. It wasn't just that I was Black, but I was also queer, and the room wasn't ready for that. My voice didn't match the branding. Another time, someone said, "We need trans representation." Everyone, of course, agreed, until representation looked like me, until it sounded like my lived anger, my refusal to smile through pain, my complicated truth that didn't wrap up neatly at the end. And again, I was told, too political, too loud, too complicated, too honest. That's the thing about the intersections. They are often framed as too much, too angry, too radical, too inconvenient. And if you're not careful, you start believing it. You start editing yourself, not just your tone, but your truths. You start breaking your sentences into pieces, choosing only the part that won't upset anyone. You rehearse smiles. You hold back your rage. You become a version of yourself that doesn't feel like yours anymore. But what if we stop making ourselves digestible? What if we stopped offering diluted versions of ourselves just to be invited in? What if we let the fullness of our stories stand even when they are difficult? What if we let it be messy? What if we let it be whole? What if we understood that too much is only ever a problem from those who benefit from our silence? But I won't define intersectionality for you. Plenty of scholars have done that. I'm not here to teach, but I'm here to name, to hold space, to tell the truth, to say things that don't fit into any caption. To the Black queer kid who doesn't see themselves in rainbow marketing, whose lived experience doesn't fit into sanitized corporate slogans or Pride Month merchandise, The one who has to translate their reality into digestible bites to be heard in spaces that claim to be inclusive, but never asks what inclusion should actually look like. To the disabled trans person who keeps getting left out of every advocacy poster, whose access needs are an afterthought, whose body is politicized and pitied but rarely protected, whose stories are ignored because they don't align with performative narrative of empowerment. You exist beyond inspiration tropes. You deserve ease. To the undocumented non-binary person whose safety is never part of the policy, whose paperwork doesn't reflect their personhood, whose pronouns are disregarded at borders and in shelters, who is told to choose between survival and authenticity every day, you are not an exception. You are essential to the movement. This is for all of us. This is for you. For your silence, for your screaming, for your softness, for your survival. You are not too complicated. You are not too much. You are exactly what truth looks like when it refuses to be flattened. This space is yours, unfiltered, unrevised, unapologetically layered. Because identity isn't a checkbox, it is a map, and some of us have had to draw ours from scratch with broken pencils, in the margins, under surveillance, in the dark, but still, we draw. In the next episode, we will talk about visibility and erasure, what it means to be hyper visible and unseen at the same time. But for now, sit with this. Let the intersection speak. Let them exist without having to explain themselves. This has been Where We Unite, and I am Madam Kelsey Brooks. Thank you for existing fully, wildly, and in between.